I'm consumer investigator Dale Cardwell. In today's world, too many bad outcomes are simply allowed to exist. This podcast is all about solving unsolvable problems, exposing bad guys who think they'll get away, and getting positive results for every deserving consumer. This is why Trust Dale investigates.
What are you telling me? You're telling my grandson had an accident? He was drunk and they took him to jail. He said to call his grandmother? For what? For the money.
It's one of the sickest scams I've ever come across. Con men targeting the elderly, preying on people's worst fear. That's a family member in trouble. I'm consumer investigator Dale Cardwell. Today, on This Could Happen to You, one brave grandma shares her experience to warn you and hopefully prevent bandits from breaking your heart like they broke hers. Here on Trust Dale Investigates, we'll tell you how the federal government is cracking down on these crooks and holding one of the world's largest wire transfer companies responsible. But first, listen in as Grandma explains how it all started.
Well, I was sitting in the kitchen and I was reading a book and the phone rang.
Hello?
And it was this gentleman that called me. He says, I'm a lawyer. My name is so-and-so. He says, I'm calling because your grandson was in an accident. My grandson's in jail. And I says, why? Because he hit the lady and he ran. And he's in jail and he's saying, please, call my grandma. They said, call my grandma because my grandma will take care something for me.
The call is the catalyst, and that something that she's going to take care of consists of sending thousands of dollars to a person who's pretending to be her grandson's attorney. And as you're going to hear, he's not exactly on the right side of the law.
He says, well, he needs $2,000. $2,000? For what? Well, we want to buy off the judge because we don't want this on his record. He says, and I want you to mail this money, and he gave me the address to mail it. He says, use Western Union. And I said, oh, I'll have to go find out who's got Western Union. Well, drugstore has Western Union.
Despite the cold February rain, Grandma puts on her protective plastic bonnet, grabs an umbrella, and carefully tucks the wad of $20, $50, and $100 bills into her pocketbook. She climbs into her Honda Accord, heading to a drugstore that houses a Western Union kiosk. There are plenty of kiosks closer to her home, but she's fearing that someone might see her, might stop her. She drives 7 miles out of her way on slick asphalt to wire the money that she prays will bail her firstborn grandson out of jail and out of trouble.
Later on, when he got the money, he called me. He said, well, I approached the judge, and the judge says, no, I can't keep this hush-hush. He says, you're going to have to get more money before I'll settle for that. I'll send you the $4,000. He says, but don't go to the same place. You go to another place.
He also told her not to tell anybody, that her grandson specifically asked her, don't tell my dad. So Grandma heads out again, this time to her local grocery store.
And I did it, and the people were looking at me, and they were saying, why are you sending it there? Of course, I didn't tell them. And I sent it. He says, thank you. That was the end of it.
So let me tell you a little something about Grandma. Born and raised in Montclair, New Jersey, she survived the Great Depression, then got married at 17. After the war, in 1945, she gave birth to her first child, a son. She got pregnant 4 more times, all girls, but lost each one before they could reach full term. 10 years after her first son was born, her long-awaited second child, another son, arrived, just in time to travel west to California, where the family was looking for a new start. Both her and her husband worked hard, and after saving responsibly throughout the years, retired in Las Vegas, where together they spent their days fixing up their home and their nights at the casino, playing rounds of bingo and taking endless pulls on penny slots. Some days they won, some days they just paid to play. By being financially frugal in their youth, they could be generous to their family and themselves in their golden years. But her husband's health problems prompted another cross-country move, this time to the southeast to be near her oldest son and his family. Grandma hasn't had it easy. Within 3 years, her younger son, her beloved sister, and her partner of 65 years died. Grandma is now 93 years old. She lives on her own, exercises by walking her neighborhood every day, visits the Indian casinos in North Carolina twice a month, and is in love with a dog named Zuzu. Though Gram's still of sound mind, age has affected her verbal filter. Sometimes she offers unwanted advice and blunt opinions. She also shares too much personal information, especially when her heartstrings are pulled. That's what happened when this particular con man called, casting emotional bait she could not resist.
She's a sharp lady, but when it comes to her family, she'll do anything.
That's Grandma's daughter-in-law, Linda. She explains how the family discovered the scam.
She came to our house, and our son, who was supposedly in the accident, happened to be here on a trip from California. And she went up to him and she said, "Well, how are you? Is everything?" He's looking at her like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And that's how we found out.
He and his wife came to my son's house, and I look at my grandson and I says, "How are you?" He says, "Why, Grandma? Why you ask me how am I?" And then he turned around and says, did somebody say something to you?" I said, "Somebody called and said you were in an accident." He says, "Grandma, you were scammed. You were scammed."
When Trustdale Investigates returns, hear how the feds are fighting back, shutting these thieves down, and find out what they are doing to prevent more people like Grandma from becoming victims.
Cars are so important to our lives. Don't take the chance of your vehicle breaking down. When it comes to oil changes and preventive maintenance, you can trust Haviland Express Lube. Haviland Express Lube achieves that goal by getting you in and out quicker than the competition and delivering the best value every time. Plus, you're double protected by the Trustdale Make It Right guarantee. Service you need from the people you trust at Haviland Express Lube.
Welcome back to Trustdale Investigates. Here's more of our story.
Anita's grandson called to say his wallet was stolen in London. He begged her to send money, but not to tell his mom.
That's audio from a video on the Federal Trade Commission's website. It's a campaign designed to bring awareness to wire transfer scams.
It's so easy to come up to a Western Union anywhere in the world and without even presenting ID, just say a name, and get that money. Unfortunately, that money's gone, which is why we would say the best thing that a consumer could do is try to avoid it.
Trey Kaysen is the manager of outreach at Georgia Watch, a nonprofit whose purpose is to protect consumers through education, advocacy, and of course, prevention.
So with this type scam, one sign to look for is anyone asking you to keep this a secret or keep it private. Don't talk with family members. Let this just be between us. That should send off some red flags, some warning signals.
Because the FTC was flooded with consumer complaints about this type of scheme, the FTC joined forces with the Justice Department and the U.S. Postal Service, and as a result of the joint investigation, Western Union admitted to aiding and abetting wire fraud, and now they're being made to pay out $586 million to victims like Grandma and other folks taken in similar schemes that promise prizes, loans, and jobs in exchange for money up front.
I was beside myself, and I'm still beside myself. I'll never get over it.
Grandma, why are you telling us the story?
I'm telling you because I've been so embarrassed. I haven't mentioned this to hardly anyone but my family, and I feel that maybe this will help somebody else. Talk about it, report it, Call the police, call whoever you want.
Well said. At Trustdale, we're all about building a community of trust. Our podcast is one of the many ways we stay connected with you and keep you informed about the most important consumer issues. If you like our podcast, please like us on Facebook and share it with your friends. If you share this and other podcasts, you may be preventing other folks from being ripped off. Send your stories to Trustdale Investigates. Visit trustdale.com and tell us about it or message me on Facebook.